All right, as promised, I'm going to take you into my Training Peaks account, show you exactly what I look at, all the charts, all the past performances, to hopefully set smart goals for my upcoming season. Now, before I get into this, obviously it does require that you have data in your Training Peaks. So this will only work if you have a history, but it will highlight the importance of keeping a good training log, because if the numbers that you're getting and putting into Training Peaks are garbage, the numbers you're going to get out are also going to be garbage. So garbage in, garbage out. Really important to manage your training log effectively. That will be the next tutorial that we're going to cover. And this one, whether it pertains to you or not, at least it will highlight the importance of doing that. If you do have history in your Training Peaks, you can go back and do just this. Again, as long as you weren't tracking garbage. So digging in to my goals, just scrolling down here on the home page, you can see that I've broken it down into short-term goals and then medium-term, and then as the dates get farther and farther away, obviously those shift into longer-term goals. Now, I haven't put my main A-race goal in there yet, which would occur at the end of August. I'm still trying to figure out whether that's realistic or not, but I'll throw it out there for the sake of this video anyway. The race that I'm gearing up for or peaking for this year is going to be Ironman Canada again. I have a redemption year ahead of me. That race didn't go so well with a couple of flats, and I'd love to return and actually hit my goals, which time-wise or performance-wise overall, I'd like to do about a 9:15 to 9:30. And obviously I've broken that down into what I'd like to accomplish for the swim, bike, and run, but maybe I'll talk about that in another video. Moving all the way back up to where we are now, starting the year, the first about 6 weeks, because I made these goals about 2 weeks ago, I've turned to short-term goals, and again, you can title these whatever you like. I have two types of goals in here, and I would highly recommend that you include both. So one is a process goal, one is a performance goal. A process goal is actually something you have to do to achieve that outcome, which would be the performance goal. So my first process goal is really consistency. So I would like to complete 90% of the planned training stress each week. So for example, if my week had a 500 training stress, I would like to get to at least 450. If it was 1,000, I'd like to get to 900. Check my math on that. So that is goal number one, and hopefully in my calendar it turns a beautiful streak of green and I hit those targets in terms of training stress, because that's really what we're measuring when we're training, is how stressed we are, trying to manage that with recovery, and hopefully that relates to some of the performance goals that we've set for ourselves. So first performance goal that I have is achieving an FTP of 310. Now, I do believe that's achievable and realistic. I'm currently sitting at 305, and we've done quite a bit of training since I hit that 305 FTP. So this one looks like it's pretty good, but we'll see at the end of the month whether I achieve it or not. And then I have a running goal of running a sub 34-minute 10K on a treadmill at a 1% incline. I want to be specific so I don't cheat the next time. And that puts me right in around the 324 minute per kilometer pace, which right now I'm running 330s pretty comfortably. I think that should be doable too. Now, do I think these goals are going to be easy? No. It will take everything that I have to achieve them, but I do believe it's realistic, but it does give me just that little carrot out there to work towards. As we get farther and farther out in terms of dates, obviously those shift more into mid and longer term goals. And again, I'm not going to go through all of them at the moment, but really nice to detail them out, not only for yourself, but also for your coach you might be working with. And it just keeps you on track, focused on what to work towards. Now, there's a couple other pieces that I look at before I even get to this point of making goals. And usually where I start is at my dashboard. So if you click on the dashboard, if you have data in your Training Peaks, good data in your Training Peaks, one of the most useful charts, I'll say important charts, useful charts is going to be the performance management chart. Now, if you've never seen this chart before, I'll quickly explain it. The blue line is chronic training load or your fitness. So this is the training stress accumulated over a 42-day period, which should relate to you becoming fitter. So that's where you see the blue line. Obviously, if it's going up, you're getting more fit. If it's going down, a little less fit. So the higher the fitness level, technically, unless you're overtrained, you should have the highest performance possible. The pink lines is the acute training load, so that's short-term training load over a course of a 4-day period, and that really highlights your, I'll say, training blocks. So each one of these is a peak, training peaks. And as you can see, I'm stressing myself out more and more and more, and then I allow myself to recover, and then stress out, recover. There are some big legs in here, so some big breaks. Actually, before I talk about those, the yellow is the inverse relationship of the pink, which is your form, so your freshness. Obviously, the more tired you are, the poorer form you're in, and vice versa. The more rested you are, the better form you're in. There are some best practices about trying to hit, various competitions to maximize performance where your form should be. We'll save that for another video as well. But all you need to know is this tells the macro story of your training for, again, whatever you set the parameters for. Really cool to look back on 2 seasons, and this tells a story for me because I know what was happening at, every phase along these last 2 years. Like right here, this little break was when Ironman Canada was canceled, and I decided to take some time off. And then I ramped up for Ironman Arizona, and then I was so burnt out from training for 11 months that I took a long hiatus. Now, the cool thing is when you look at where you were fitness-wise, so coming off of last season or starting last year, I had big aspirations. January 1st, here we go. And you can see January 1st, my fitness, was at 46. And I did a little bit of training, pumped up, and then I just stopped. You don't see very many dots around here, although dots are workouts. So I actually bottomed out last year on January 23rd at a fitness of 35. Now, where this is actually useful is I can look at where I am at this year, and it's only January 12th, and I am at a fitness of 75. So the fact that I bottomed at the end of this season at 62, as opposed to bottoming at 35, and then actually way over here, now there was some issues. Again, it tells a story. This is when I had some health issues, had to have some procedures and surgeries, time off, work got busy here, got sick. Anyway, lots of stories behind it. But when you look at the numbers and you go, geez, when it was March 24th, I was only at a fitness of 37. I really hadn't done much. And I had a disruption, and had a fantastic race right about here at a fitness of only 80. Well, man, I'm feeling pretty optimistic about heading into the season if I'm already sitting at 74. So if you collect good data, if you are accurately keeping track of your training stresses, it does take a little work, especially some disciplines like swimming, where the data you collect on your watch doesn't really come through very well most times. You do have to make some manual adjustments, and again, the next video I'll show you on how to manage your training plan effectively, that you can create one of these wonderful pictures of history, and it will either give you confidence that you're in a really good place ahead of schedule, or maybe that kick in the ass that, man, you better get going. And trust me, when I was looking back going, this hurts, last season, this was my kick in my ass to get going pretty hard. So that is usually where I start in terms of looking at what went well, where I built to in a particular season, and what possibilities lay in front of me for this season. So flipping back to your home page, the other really useful tool that I use are your peak performances. Now, unfortunately, this is only available in the premium edition, so you do have to upgrade for it. But the cool thing is when you click on view all, I mean, it's great to celebrate peak performances when they pop up and yay, I did something good. But it's really cool if you want to figure out how you actually achieved that in the past. So if I want to look at the best, I'll say FTP I've ever done, I can search for my bike, for power. Usually we're doing a 20-minute FTP test, so I'm going to look for my highest 20-minute effort. You know, I could look at my best 60-minute effort if I ever put in a hard 60-minute effort as hard as I could. So I'm going to use the 20-minuter and take 95% of it, which is typically how you calculate FTP. And I'm going to look at all time. So all the records I have. And you can see here, number one, this is my best peak 20-minute. This was back in April 16th. 2020. I did another good one, 2021, a little farther or a little earlier for my third one. So if I'm looking at this one, now this is actually a race, so you always got to take those with a grain of salt. This is a race on Zwift. Usually when you're in an event like that and the adrenaline is pumping and you're pushing hard, you're usually a little higher than what you would do in, say, an FTP test. But I also have those numbers too. So from 2021 and another one here in 2021, a little bit earlier, I'm sitting around 334, 332. If I take about 95% of that, my best FTP is around 317, 320-ish. So the cool thing is what you can do is click on that, see what day it is, and you can actually go into your calendar and look at what you did to achieve that performance. I'm not going to do that right now. I did the homework before making this video, and looking back on that, I was riding about 10 to 13 hours a week. I was at a bike fitness of 65, and obviously, it does matter what type of workouts you were doing and the quality of them, but generally my plan stays fairly consistent with some tweaks every year when I kind of, think about what worked and what didn't work and what I'd like to change and make better. So looking at what I was doing, how much of it I was doing, and what the result is, I can then replicate that in my training to achieve my goals of a higher FTP right now. So a little farther down, you'll see in my goals in April, I want to hit an FTP of 320. I know I need to be above a 65 bike fitness, and I need to be riding 10 to 13 hours. Give or take, I'm a little more developed as a cyclist, and it does depend what I'm doing with biking and running and strength training as well. That will impact. So there are a few variables thrown in there, but generally, I got a good idea. I need to put some time in on the bike if I want to achieve that FTP target. So that's a really powerful way to go back, look at some of your best performances, then go to the calendar. What did I have to do to get there? Now you can replicate it this year. And hopefully, based on where your current performances are in training, you can use all these data points to set some goals that are realistic, but they're going to push you a little bit. So that's how I start off looking at the history to hopefully inform the future. And fingers crossed, these are going to be some tough goals, but I think I can achieve them. So next lesson, we are going to talk about managing your training plan in Training Peaks to make sure that you are getting good stuff in there so you can mine that gold later on and again, better perfect your training going forward. That's it. Easy.